am Sharon, one of your hosts for S&S Co-Ed, which stands for Single and Satisfied Co-Ed. Okay, this is a faith-based community organization that is designed to educate, inspire, empower, and encourage both men and women to become the best versions of themselves before entering marriage. Okay, I'm going to get into that a little later because I believe that this community, this organization is beneficial to someone you know or to yourself. Okay, so listen. With Mother's Day being this Sunday, it's right around the corner. Yes, it is. With it being right around the corner, we felt that it was so important to do a special segment that would be honoring our mothers, honoring motherhood, and not just single mothers, but mothers in general. So whether you're a single mom, you're married with children, you're a mother in love, you're a spiritual mom, you're a mother figure, you're a guardian, if you adopted a child, we salute and honor you. Yes, we do. And listen, as you're tagging those super women, and shout out to all of you because we want to recognize you, I felt that, it would be befitting to also honor those mothers who have transitioned into being our angels, because they are the reason that you are still here alive and you are breathing, of course, along with your father. But I want to do this. I want to take a moment to highlight a few. And I want to start off with my grandmother, Mary C. Richardson. She's the reason why my beautiful mother is here today. Such a beautiful woman who loved her family, loved her children, loved her grandchildren. She worked hard, a woman with great morals. And she was just all around lovely. And you would to know her was to love her. And so I want to honor my grandmother, Mary C. Richardson. Also, I want to honor Joanne Thornton. Joanne Thornton is the reason why my dad, Bishop Greg Thornton, is here today. She's such a beautiful woman as well. And so we want to honor her. Okay. And also, I want to honor a dear aunt of mine who passed on last year. Okay. Her name was Doreen Brown, Aunt Doreen Brown. Oh my God, such a big personality, genuine and loving, funny. And I was inspired by her because of her voice. She has such a powerful voice. Yes. I mean, and she was anointed by God. And every time she picked up that mic, boy, you felt it. You felt it. Okay, such an amazing woman. Yeah. And we love them and miss them dearly. And here's what I want you to do. If there's a mother figure, a mentor, your mother, someone that has transitioned into being your guardian angel, your angel, I want you to put them in the comments section, okay? I want you to put a dove next to them, a heart, and I want us to show some love and to honor them. We definitely want to remember our mothers. They're such a blessing, such a blessing, such a blessing. Make sure you put their names in a dove and a heart so we can recognize who they are. Yes. And I am the mother of a handsome, talented, gifted young man. One son, his name is Kevin Willingham Jr. That is my one and only. And boy, I tell you, I joke around and I say, listen, he has more than one mother. He has more than one mother.
Yes, he does.
My sister and my mom, they spoil him. I tell you. Oh my God, something. He is a blessing though. And so, yes, we see them coming in. We see them coming in. Yes. Awesome. So beautiful. We see the names. we see the names. So there's a Rosalind. Let's see. My godmom, Antoinette. Awesome. Yes. Wow. Wow. So listen, as you're tagging and you're putting up those hearts and those doves, Bernice Pfeiffer, yes. That's my grandmother as well. Let's go ahead. She was a bonus grandmother. Yes. Let's put her up. Yes. Oh my. She was a beautiful spirit. Yes. Loved her, and she loved her family as well. Monday night, was it Monday night prayers? Yeah. Will be hosted at Grandma Pfeiffer's, boy. But all of the children, you know, we'd be running around playing and doing our thing, but they would be praying down something. Yes. We have Emily Victoria Lott, who is an angel in heaven. Yes. So you guys, you are in for a treat. And I have some amazingly gifted, intelligent, anointed, and might I add, beautiful superwomen that have joined me on tonight. And they're going to be sharing in tonight's dialogue. I'm going to give them a floor to share a little bit about themselves, but allow me to pause. Allow me to pause right here because tonight is extra special. It is extra special because I have my prime example, my queen, my inspiration, my greatest supporter, author, speaker, philanthropist, mentor, spiritual mom. Some know her as apostle, but I, along with my siblings, have the privilege of calling her mama, mommy. Everyone, show some love for my mother, Apostle Joyce Thornton. Let's welcome her. Thank you. Mom, go ahead and share a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am Dr. Joyce Thornton, and I am the mother of 5 beautiful children, and I am the grandmother of 12 beautiful grandchildren. I am the founder and senior pastor, along with my husband, of Committed to Christ International Ministries in Arlington, Texas. We have been pastoring that church for this year 25 years. I am also the founder of Covenant Sisters International, which is a global ministry. It's 17 years this month, and I am just excited to be with S&S tonight. And I love God. I love my family. I love God's people. And I love the work of the Lord. And I'm just glad to be here tonight. And of course, I'm glad to be on this great platform with some phenomenal women, Nettye Johnson, and of course, my dear covenant sister and friend, Dr. Latonya Powers.
Yes. That being said, Dr. Latonya Powers is with us, and boy, does she live up to that last name, Powers. Okay, yes, she is a powerhouse, an author, a prophetess, and she's become an aunt to me. Yes. Prophetess, Dr. Latonya Powers. Let's welcome her. Please go ahead and share a little bit about yourself.
Well, hello there, everybody. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me, Sharon, and it's so wonderful to be here with some amazing women. And so my name is Dr. Latonya Powers. I am also a senior pastor of the Post 24 Community Church here in the beautiful state of Georgia. And I am a mother of 3 wonderful boys, one who has transitioned, and so we'll talk about that a little later. And I am also an author and journalist to Sheen Magazine. I'm super excited about that. I have my own company, Transform You Empowerment Group, which is a mental health. I'm a life strategist, and I just believe in building people outside of the 4 walls of the church. And so that's just a little bit about me.
Yes, awesome. And last but not least, certainly not least, we have Miss Nettye Johnson, award-winning speaker. She's an author, a self-care strategist. She has definitely blessed me ever since I found her via the internet. And I know that that was certainly God that led me to her. welcome Nettye Johnson, everyone. Please share a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Well, good evening, everybody, and thank you so much, Sharon, Ann, for this opportunity to share with you all. It is truly an honor to be amongst these amazing women. Um, my name is Nettye Johnson. I am from this neighboring state. I'm in Louisiana, just outside of Baton Rouge, in a small town called Denham Springs, Louisiana. As she mentioned, I am a speaker. I'm a two-time author, and my main profession falls in the area of health education. I'm the founder of Education for Transformation, and we provide science-based, faith-empowered education, resources, and programming that basically helps people to live their God-given potential. My passion is really helping women to lead and live well. And I have a true heart for singles ministry. I am a mom as well. I have two children, a 17-year-old and a 13-year-old. And I'm just honored to be here to just lift up and celebrate motherhood. It truly is a gift.
Yes, awesome. And we're excited to have all of you here tonight. And without further delay, let's just go ahead and dive in. As you all know, tonight's topic is entitled Superwoman. Superwoman. And when I looked up the word super, it meant exceptional, top notch, first class, exquisite, and it mentioned the word perfect. And I know some of you are like, wait a minute. I'm not perfect. I have flaws. I make mistakes. I don't always make the best decisions. I'm not always accessible when I desire to be accessible because of my demanding career or the many things that I do. And I'm finding it hard to balance. But you know what? Here's what I realized. To me, in my opinion, the word perfect is subjective.
Okay.
It is subjective because you know what? I truly believe that your children, your family, because I know that we have single mothers that are watching, we have spiritual mothers, we have mothers that are married. You know what? No one is perfect. No one is perfect. And I don't think we give ourselves enough credit or enough grace as we should, especially as women. That's right? And your children, your husband, you know, they know that mom loves me. Mom is trying her best, especially if you show it. Love is revealed through your actions, right? So they know that you are trying your hardest in the words you say and the things that you do. They know mom's not perfect, but I can guarantee that child will say, but you are the perfect mother for me. You are the perfect mother for my family, despite what anybody else may think. You are perfect for me. You were made for me. And I can testify to that my mother is perfect for me. She was made for me. I just cannot fathom any other mother being in her place. God knew that I needed this type of mother. I needed a pastor as a mother. I needed a supporter. I mean, she has such an amazing heart. And so going back to what I was saying about that grace and credit that we have to give ourselves, we have to give that we don't necessarily give ourselves. We have to give ourselves more grace because I truly believe that each family sees that person, especially if you show that love. You know what I'm saying? As the perfect candidate, the perfect mother for them. So that being said, I want to ask that question, and I'm going to start here with mom, and then I'll jump to you, Dr. Latonya Powers and Nettye. And by all means, feel free to keep your mics unmuted because I want you to chip in, you know, whenever. But mom, I want to know, why is it that we don't give ourselves enough grace? Why is it that we're hard on ourselves as mothers, as women?
I think sometimes we seek perfection, and we are perfectionists, and we try to do our very best. And sometimes we're harder on ourselves. I know I'm harder on myself than anyone else. I don't think I give myself enough grace. I'm really hard on myself because I want to be the best version of myself that
Sure.
I can be.
Mhm.
And so sometimes we're more harder on ourselves than anyone else, and we critique ourselves. And I should have did this, I could have did that, and and we wear a lot of hats.
Yeah.
We wear a lot of hats, and we try to balance things, and sometimes things don't always turn out the way we want them to turn out. But I believe it's the intention behind what we do, why we do, and how we do.
Yes, that's good. That's good. That's good. Dr. Powers.
That was really good. I'd like to say that question to me has to do with a lot about what we tend to measure ourselves by. You know, we tend to measure ourselves by what's going on with the next mom or the next house. But you said something very powerful, that she was the right mom for me. And you have to start looking at why God gave you what you have and the concept of what you have. And we have to interpret our season by what God given us. You're the kind of mom for the child that you have.
Yes.
And so I know for me, there are certain things that one mom may let their children do that I wasn't led to let my child do.
Yeah.
And so that perfecting piece has to do with, you know, I may not do it like you, but I'm doing it in a way to save the life of my child. And so it
Wow.
doesn't have to do with money. It doesn't have to do with how much you have. It has to do with your consistency and interpreting the rules of the game for which we call mamahood.
Yes.
And that is so funny. You mentioned something because listen, my mom was definitely one of those mothers. She was saved and sanctified. By the time I came into the earth, my mom was good and saved. Okay, I mean, she could touch you and get you saved immediately just by the touch. No, my mom was good and saved. All right. And growing up in school, I mean, it'd be funny sometimes, but you know, some of the kids, you know, they would be doing certain things and going to parties on the weekends and so forth and so on. Sharon, what you doing? Church.
Church.
I gotta go to church, or I gotta go to prayer, or it's revival.
Yeah.
It's revival. And back then as a child, you know, I really did not understand it.
Right.
I understand now.
Mhm.
I understand now.
Mhm.
And I see that mom just wanted to do what she felt was best for her children.
Yeah.
And we just could not do everything
Right.
that everybody else did. And my mom, she was like, listen, she'll vet you. She has this saying, listen, if you want your kids, you better watch them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So she just didn't let us just go off and do anything, but she was very adamant about raising us in the way of God.
Absolutely. You know, the Bible said, train up a child
Mhm.
in the way that they shall go.
Mm-hmm.
And that's so important. And I took that to heart, that God entrusted me with these beautiful lives.
Mm-hmm.
And that I had a responsibility to train them up in the things of God.
Sure. Yeah.
And so a lot of times I know they didn't understand, but everything I did it trying to please God,
Yeah.
and trying to lead them in the way that they should go.
Right. Right.
That's good.
And again, as we talked about perfect, you know, my mom wasn't perfect. I'm not perfect. She just
No.
did what she thought would be best. And we see how I turned out today.
And I must say, and I will admit, I was a little hard. I was a little hard because of the lifestyle that I had lived prior to that.
Mhm.
I wanted to guard their purpose.
Yeah.
I wanted to guard the anointing on their life.
Yeah.
I didn't want their lives to detour in another direction that I knew that it was not the will of God for them to go.
Yeah. And I will say the oldest, I think Tanya, she she had it bad. I think my mom was definitely hard on us as far as being, you know, strict. But you know what? I think she wasn't as strict on us as she was on Tanya, who's the oldest. I mean,
But
if
she
she's
said
watching,
something
she can tell
very
you.
Well,
powerful.
parenting does not come with a manual. She was my firstborn. I got pregnant at 15 years old, and I was a
Wow.
child with a child,
Mhm.
gave birth at 16. And so, you learn as you go.
You learn.
Mhm.
Right. You are right. And you will forever be learning. Yeah. I'm still learning. My child is teaching me how to love him. You know what I'm saying? So I'm still learning. I'm not too prideful to understand that I don't know everything and I'm not going to always get it right. You know what I'm saying? And speaking of not getting it right in me, I'm also hard on myself. Miss Nettye Johnson, can you give your insight, feedback on why you believe that we don't give ourselves the credit or the grace that we deserve?
Oh, I love that you said grace, and I'll come to that in a second. But before I forget, I want to put a pin in this. I would love to hear more about your having a child at 15 and how you navigated motherhood at such a young age. That is truly, we know that God's hand was along that process and helped you. So I would love to hear some more about that. But to the point about perfection and how we sometimes have such a hang up with that, I think that it kind of goes back to our definitions and how we shape what perfection looks like, what it means, and what it feels like, how it shows itself in our lives. And when the Bible tells us that we are to be perfect as God is perfect, we see that in Matthew 5, we have to remember that the biblical definition of perfect as it relates to us does not mean without fault, because there's one person that walked the earth that did not have fault, and that was Jesus Christ. The biblical definition of perfect means complete. It
Yeah.
means finished. It means that you have all that is requisite, all that is required in nature for you to do, in your natural, for you to do what you are called to do. And
Yes.
so one of the things is when we can sit back and we can rest in that and realize that, first of all, we serve a God that is a God of and. So we can be perfect, meaning we can be complete and we can still be in progress because we
Yes.
are still growing, we are still learning, God is still working on us. But it also can help us to realize that the completeness that we have, God is so good that He does not require it all to be on us for us to carry on our own. First of all, we have indwelling of Holy Spirit. So that gives us empowerment, direction, all Lord, what do we need? But
Mhm.
also, God is so good in that He made us not independent, but interdependent. So what that means is that we need one another. I love Sharon and how you opened this up by talking about mother figures, physical mothers, biological mothers, grandmothers, but also mother figures. We
Yes.
have one another in the body of Christ. So where I have lack, God has already provided somewhere, someplace, someone that can fill that in. And when we open our eyes with the Holy Spirit to allow us to have spiritual eyes, when we're willing to put some of this ego down and
Yeah.
some of this understanding that causes us to think that we have to know it all, do it all, be it all, and we see what God has already placed, then we can rest in the fact that, yes, I am complete. This thing is hard. This is tough. I may have tears, but God is able, and
Yes.
He will and has provided. So that can give us some comfort, knowing that, it's not all on us. God don't leave us out there like that on our own to do things. If He calls us to something, He's going to equip us. And so perfection is not by not making a mistake. It's about just saying, Lord, I know you got this. I know
Yes.
you got this. And so, what is my part to do this? And when we just do only what God calls us to do, that's
Mm-hmm.
enough. That's enough. And that's
It's
how
enough.
we can embrace perfection and how we can actually walk and live with grace.
Yes.
That's good.
I loved how she talked about how God actually I'm using the word partner with us. You know what I'm saying? Because the Bible says that He would never leave nor forsake us.
That's right.
Single mother, married mother, spiritual mother, mother figure. Here's what the Bible says: trust in the Lord. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart and lean not to your own understanding. And I think the conflict comes and the struggle comes in because we lean too much on our own understanding or what we may have seen before us, and things that we see on television, and if we acknowledge him, and the word says in all, if we acknowledge him in all of our ways, God is just not confined to just the spiritual aspect and just the word, but he's concerned about every aspect of our lives, you know, the wholeness, the personal relationships, asking him for direction and the know-how and the wisdom. That's the word, wisdom. I believe, was it Solomon that God asked him about what it is that he would want, and he would give him, you know, the kingdom. He said he wanted wisdom, and because he asked for that one thing,
teach me how to go out and
you know what I'm saying? That one thing granted him access to everything. And I think it is so important that we acknowledge God as mothers. Acknowledge God. God, give me direction. Every child is not the same.
No, they're not. They're not.
They have different personalities. They have different quirks. And you have to ask God for the know-how and the wisdom on how to deal with each child and be that person that each child needs you to be. And the Bible also
so
says,
true.
yeah, God is not a man that he should lie. He said that if you ask him, he will give you. You know what I'm saying? Trust in the Lord with all thy heart, lean not into thy own understanding. In all the ways, acknowledge me, and I will direct your path. I will give you the direction. I will give you the answers. I will give you what it is. We just have to remove egos and pride and remember God. Don't make our own strength idols. Don't make our own knowledge idols. Don't idolize your own strength. Don't idolize your own intellect. We don't know everything.
No, we don't.
You know, and acknowledge God. You want to say something,
Yeah,
Mom?
I was just going to say that was wonderful, Miss Nettye. That was just so powerful.
Yes.
When you was talking about, you know, perfection, because we're all imperfect people being perfected by a perfect God. So that was just powerful.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
He will direct. Go ahead. Were you saying something, Dr. Powers?
Yeah, I wanted to piggyback on something you said, Sharon, that I thought was very, very important. You began to talk about knowing what each child needs. And so many times that we are so busy with life that we don't pay attention to what's in our houses. And that's why the suicide rate is up. That's why mental health is, because we think everything is supposed to come out of the church. And I just want to just take a moment and say, don't be afraid to have the conversations. You know, there was a time that we used to all sit around at the table. We would cut the TV off and we had to eat dinner at the table. You know, kids came in from outside, did whatever you needed to do, and we had to come in and eat dinner. We have to have those conversations and not be afraid to have the right kind of conversation, which means when you train up a child, you teach them the ways, but that means you also have to have certain trainings, which means you got to keep up with the times. You can't be biblically in tune with the Bible that you don't know some street stuff that's going on. You got to know what the black web is out there offering. You got to know how to talk to your daughters. You got to know how to talk to your sons. And so when we start learning that way, it's just so important because of course it's trending all over social media that a young lady just committed suicide and she was a high school student. You know, I wonder what if the right conversations had been going on in the house. You know, what if there was more attention paid to the mental set or the mindset? So I'm passionate about paying attention to your conversations when they are, you know, and that was just so good that you said that. Watch their actions, know your child. I'm telling you, it's important.
Absolutely. And keep the lines of communication open.
That's right.
And let your child know you can come to me about anything. You can talk to me about anything. I am here for you. I love you unconditionally.
And that's so important because that was one thing that I said I was going to be intentional about because I, you know, am a black mom raising a black son in today's society. Okay, so we're going to put a pin there. And, you know, you said something about being accessible and having a listening ear. Now, there are things that as a mom, I'm wise. There are things that I just need you to be prepared for. And I'm going to be mindful of what I feed you now. But the world doesn't care about your children as they make it seem. Okay, there are things now that they are accessible to that was never
accessible
in my day.
That's right.
So you have to be involved. You have to know what's going on. You have to keep up with the times.
Yeah.
And when certain things happen, I shy away from the news a lot because it's just so much negativity. And I just do enough to be aware. But there are conversations that I have with my son so he can be in the know, so he isn't caught off guard. I am responsible for my son. Training him up is also giving him wise counsel. And if I want to be a safe space for my child, I also have to monitor my response.
Ooh, that's good.
I have to monitor my response. I can't flip off the handle immediately. If something is confidential, he wants to come to me and share something, I have to be careful how I respond because I don't want him to feel like mom cannot be trusted, or I can't talk to her because I'm going to make her upset. She's going to snap off at me. She's going to castigate. I said I was going to make it a point to make sure that my son feels comfortable about sharing any and everything. And it doesn't mean that I won't be disappointed or be upset or be alarmed, but I'm making sure that the lines of communication are open. And I'm just like, okay, son, and if something is disappointing, it's all about tone. Tone of voice is so important. And you know, in general, I believe that young men in general, they don't easily just open up and share their emotions.
No, they don't.
They kind of tuck them in the back, and sometimes because, especially nowadays, they'll call you soft. Yeah. You're not strong, or you're a punk, or you're this and that and the other. And it's already hard, you know, being a Black man in today's society. But also, my son is in high school and trying to live up to peer pressure and some of the things that, you know, and I should say negate some of the things that they would say doesn't represent a strong young man, you know. And so there's some things that I had to negate, some things that, you know, have been said, but I just wanted to make that point about just monitoring your response is so important, and communicating in a way that doesn't make him feel like, you know what, I'm not going to have this conversation again. Forget it, or I'm going to keep this to myself, or I'm going to isolate myself. And that's where the trouble sets in. Because there's one thing, you know, that there's solitude is different from isolation. That's what I'm saying. Okay. We all want moments of solitude where we need a moment to ourselves, but isolation, the enemy can work in isolation. Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. And that's where depression and different things, thoughts of suicide, all of those things can creep in with isolation. All right. And I said, you know, I don't want my son to deal with those type of things. I know the warfare that is happening, the spiritual warfare that is out there now, and they want to destroy this generation. The enemy is after our children, this generation. We have to be vigilant. We have to remain spiritual and natural, because we got to keep up with these times. We got to know what to say. You got to, yes, you have to have a balance. And I just wanted to make that point. But there was something that Miss Nettye brought up, and she said she wanted to hear more about it, how you navigated. You mentioned earlier about having a child at the age of 15. Yes. And she wanted to know, how did you navigate at that young age to be able to take care of your daughter, to raise your daughter, Taya?
Well, I got pregnant at 15, and I gave birth shortly after my 16th birthday. But I had a family. I had a loving mother. Abortion was out of the question. Not that that was even in my mind. And I just had a community of family that was there to help me and support me. My daughter's grandmother, her father's side of the family, my family, her father, and we just did it. We just raised her. And I'm just so grateful. I grew up with her almost. It was almost like I grew up with her. And I was very, very protective over her. I didn't really understand what it meant to love a human being until I gave birth. You know what I'm
Wow.
saying? I love, but it's a love that you have when God gives you a child.
Wow.
And so, I mean, I would do it all over again. It wasn't easy. I ended up dropping out of school.
Mm.
I didn't go back to school until I was 29 years old and got my high school diploma because I dedicated myself to raising my child.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't have child care and all of that. My mom was working and different ones were working. So I did what I had to do to survive, and God made a way. And I'm just so grateful. And she has turned out to be a beautiful young woman.
Yes, she
Had
has.
a mother of three, um, just a fabulous
She
mother,
is.
and a preacher of the gospel.
Yes. Shout out to Tanya.
Yes, yes, Pastor Latonya Fisk, and I just thank God for my child. I do. I really, really do. So
So basically, the community, the family, the tribe that you had helped you raise Tanya.
yes, absolutely. My mother
Mm.
was there for me. My daughter's grandmother was there for
Yeah.
me. My siblings, everyone was around. So
Yeah.
they helped me. She was just spoiled rotten. That's how I can say. She was just spoiled rotten. But is there anything specific you wanted to ask, Miss Nettye?
You just shared a lot. I mean, I just got so much from what you're saying, everything from the connectedness of the community and how you had support. But what really struck me, and it ties into some of the other comments that were said earlier, it blew me away when you said you devoted your time and you devoted yourself to your child and didn't go back to school until you were 29. Now that is powerful on so many fronts.
Yes, I
Yeah.
was going to bring that up.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, that you, even at that young age, you had the wisdom to say, my season, my assignment for this season is this child. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And and earlier, Dr. Powers said sometimes we're so busy with life that we sometimes put our children on the back burner. Ecclesiastes 3 tells us for everything there is a season, there is a time. And
Yes.
we have to realize that when we have babies, and you live this, when we have children, God is granting us a limited number of years where we have tremendous influence, where
Mm.
we're not only just pouring in and taking care of their bodies, we're pouring into their
Yes.
souls. We have that kind of, we, our job is to nurture their souls, to help them to,
Yes.
and y'all talked earlier over and over again about that training, and look at the wisdom at that young age. And I imagine you got it from God giving it to you and from your community to say right now your
Yes.
season is to pour into this child. And then the other awesome part of what you did is you still went back and got yours. Like,
Went back to school when I was
that is
29 years old
awesome.
and got my high school diploma. It's
That's
never too late
commendable.
to go
That's
back.
So
commendable.
It's
great.
never too late to go back. And
Yes.
I wanted to get that. I wanted to obtain that. And so when the time came, I went back, and she was able to be there to applaud me as I walked across the stage with my
Wow.
So
cap and gown. I'm like,
cool.
hey, I finally got it. Never too
Listen,
late to get it. And then
never.
went
Yes.
on to school after that to further my education. And so that was what I did, and that was important for me. And
Yes.
I was there, to raise her and committed to doing that, and protective. Like I told you, when I first gave birth to her, I'm like, I never knew love like that until you have your own child, and
Mm.
just spoiled her rotten.
Yes, amazing. And that's why, one of the reasons why I salute you as a superwoman, because you definitely beat the odds.
Oh.
And you went back to school and got your high school diploma. Just, even if there were naysayers, even if there was doubts in your mind, I've seen my mom work 2, 3 jobs and take care of all of her children, okay, with her long nails, working for the city, driving a bus. I mean, my mom was doing her thing. She was adamant, she was intentional, and
Mm.
pastoring and taking care of her family. And in light of that, this is why the next subject pops up, because I know she's not the only one. Dr. Powers is not the only one, and Nettye and myself. There are countless women that are tuning in and across the world that may struggle with balance.
Mm-hmm.
Balance. I'm going to work. I'm going to school. I have 3 or 4 children, or I have one. I'm working 2 or 3 jobs in this economy. I don't have enough time for myself, or I feel like I'm failing because I can't give 100% to everything.
Mm-hmm.
How do we balance motherhood and our careers? Married and or single, where does self-care come into play? Is it okay to be selfish sometimes? We mentioned the word mental wellness. How does that play in? I want to start with Dr. Powers. Can you comment on that? Can we? Yeah, somebody said balance. Talk about it.
I
Yes.
love it.
So the way I can talk about this is to really talk about me, because I do so much. I travel all the time. I have a business. I'm a pastor, mother. At one time, I was a wife, and then I went through divorce. So now I'm single. So at the end of the day, when it comes to trying to juggle all the hats, you don't sacrifice one to make sure the other is okay. At all times, your house needs to be the first and foremost. And we know the scripture says that love ministry starts at home. And then when you build, Apostle said about she had a community. You have to learn to build a community around you and know your season and your timing. That once you get your child to a certain place, you have to be creative. I
Mm,
became creative with mine. Me and my children would do our homework together. I was in school, they was in school. And so we did it together. We made it fun. And listen, when I went on the road, my babies were babies. I hired a mother to go with me. She stayed in the hotel while I went to preach. And I came back. I didn't leave my children with folk. And so we're so comfortable with leaving our children everywhere. And, we don't know what's in another person's house. That wasn't me. You could come to my house, but my children can't go to yours because I don't know who come to your house. I haven't checked background, so I don't. And then I know how the enemy was warring with me. So I wasn't going to put my child somewhere that I could not fight, that I
mm.
could not see. And so I had to learn how to balance my life by prioritizing my ministry, prioritizing
Prioritize.
my career, which means, and that's where Apostle came in. She said, I had to raise my child, then go. I didn't go to college, or I didn't even go to seminary school until I was in my 30s. And I was
Yes.
preaching and going, but my children were important to me. I worked 2 or 3 jobs, but listen, I would take my lunch break and pick them up, take them home, because their dad was getting ready to get out, and then go back to my second job, come home. If I had to preach, I would go home and make sure dinner was there and everything. So even when it came to self-care and I needed a breather, I made it about them. I made sure they were good. And sometimes my breathers was just going out on the back porch, taking a deep breath, getting some good air,
Mm,
or going
yeah.
for a walk. You may not be able to do certain things right now, but you build up to it. You don't sacrifice family vacations. You don't sacrifice great conversation. You don't sacrifice bowling. You don't sacrifice, movie nights. You make it about the family. And then when it comes that time where you need a mental getaway, you get you a journal, you go writing, you do little bit by little bit, steps by steps, and you build your self-care, you build your life care,
Yeah.
you use strategies to do it, because I'm telling you, our children are watching us, and the same thing we do, they're going to repeat. If we're always angry and antsy, they're going to be
Mm.
angry and antsy. If we're always, just chaotic, they're going to be chaotic. We have to learn balance by trial and error. We're not going to always get it right, but guess what? If we do it together, I always tell my sons, we're a team. We got a goal. We're going to do this, and we work at it together, which makes them feel involved and they have a sense of responsibility. So that's how I did mine.
Yeah, I love that. And you use the word um, priority, or your priorities. And another word that I would use that worked for me is structure.
Yes.
I need structure, an outline. Because when I don't have a structure and my priorities in order, then I find myself all over the place. And I cannot function at my best when I'm all over the place. So, um, having a notepad and my phone and writing some things down, creating some structure, realistically, that's the thing, realistically was important for me. Miss Nettye, go ahead and give us some feedback on that.
Sure. This is a passion area for me. I actually professionally, part of what I do is self-care strategy
Yes, let's
because of
go.
Let's do it.
how incredibly important it is for our health. And health is holistic. It's not just the absence of disease. It is again the completeness of mind, body, soul. All of that comes together in our wellness. I love what Dr. Power says, and in my experience, is actually kind of the flip of what you all have shared, in that my children came later in life. As a matter of fact, my husband and I used to kind of joke and say that we were going to be like Abraham and Sarah, because and my goal is not to be in a hover round at their college graduation. I mean, we're older parents, and and so and the reason being is not because of choice. We actually suffered from infertility for a number of years, and that's a whole nother heartbreak and thing, but God did bless. And both of my children, not only after having infertility issues and having a long time and a challenge getting pregnant, both of my babies were born two separate pregnancies, 4 years apart. They were both born at 2 pounds. One was 2 pounds 4 ounces, the other was 2 pounds 13 ounces.
Wow.
So we had challenges very much going on. And when you all talk about balance, let me start off by saying what imbalance looks like.
Yes, yes.
So I was older and further along in my career, and by the time my children were born, I was working a lot. I traveled a lot. I worked. As a matter of fact, I worked for the nation's largest weight loss company. I used to work for, it's now called WW. I used to work for Weight Watchers. And when my first child was born, I was a national trainer. So I would go around the nation training people. But by the time my second child was born, I directed operations for the states of Texas and Oklahoma. So I live in Louisiana. My territory was two states over. I managed almost 1,000 people, a
Wow.
very large portfolio of business, and I had a 2 pound baby. Can we talk about imbalance?
Wow.
I can remember before my second child was born, my son, and of course, I was trying to take care of him, but I was trying to do it all. I was trying to balance the career. And as the career was escalating and all of these things, I had to get to a point where I was like, is this God blessing me, or is this a test? Because everything that looks good, the extra money, the elevation in career,
Mm.
everything that looks good is not a God thing. And
Wow.
for years, I
Yes.
fought it because I was not willing. I was trying to be Superwoman. I was going
Hmm.
to, oh, I can remember there were times when my son, I would actually, I got to a place where I was traveling between 50 and 70% of the time. And I would actually have to get my suitcase at night because my son, who didn't really even have words yet, he was a toddler, he would cry when he saw mama get a suitcase. And then I would
Mm.
cry on the way to the airport. I can recall being in another state, sitting in a car in between meetings, pumping milk to send it old FedEx home for somebody else to feed my baby.
Wow.
Out of control, out of balance. But on the outside, and at the same time, I was teaching in church and I was on five ministries, five, five, and my life was a mess. And God, but on the outside, people were like, Nettye, look at you, you're so sharp in this career. And the money was good. And but it was totally out of balance because I was trying to do too many things at the same time. And going back to what Dr. Power said, my priorities were out of order.
Yes.
So God kind of had to have his way with me and whip me to some things. And eventually, when I came to the place to realize that I had to shift some things, I ended up walking away from this career. And it was a big impact in our financial situation. But I came home and devoted myself to my children. And then from that, eventually God gave me the business that I did have and the work. So it took a bit of shifting. So when we talk about balance and self-care, we have to go back again to definitions. Balance does not mean trying to do all the things. Balance
Mm,
means doing what God has you to do for this period of your life. We have
yes.
seasons, and we've seen how God has taken all the women here in this on this panel through different seasons and different paths. Someone said earlier, you can't look at what everybody else is doing. What path am I on? And
Yes.
we have to be willing to honor that and sometimes make those sacrifices. So I have heard very influential people say balance is a myth, and that I used to say that when I didn't have balance, but now that I have balance, I know balance is real. It can be true, but it starts with your priorities and honoring God by living in your purpose in what he calls you to do. And I love Sharon and how you said writing things down. I actually, some practical steps. I encourage people to define what their priorities are. And your priorities at 20 are probably not going to be your priorities at 25. My priority, how many of us have had shifts in priorities because of COVID? What happened? Like your priorities can change at different times. That's why we pray without ceasing. That's why we have that quiet time. And y'all, some of that quiet time, that time in your prayer closet, that time listening, that time prostrate before God, y'all, that's some self care. And that's some self care that's better sometimes than that massage, as much as I love a massage. Because self care does not just soothe you, it should improve you.
Yes.
When we are devoting
Somebody type that in the
ourselves
comment
to self
section.
care, it improves us. When we are saying, Lord, what are my priorities? Going back to what you said, Sharon, and what you said, Dr. Powers, literally write them down. And I encourage the individuals that I work with then in the day to say, here are my priorities, and think about what is ahead of you and say, what are one, two, three things, Lord, that if I accomplish these things, I am doing what is most important.
Come on.
How often do we make a list? Y'all, I'm a list person. Y'all see, I've been writing the whole time. Sometimes I would just have stuff because I had been so much into this superwoman that I got gratification for just checking stuff off a list. Like that check felt good. This didn't, what I'm doing don't even matter. I'm leaving the important things undone. You know how the scripture, Jesus told the Pharisees, you doing all this, but what about the heart of the matter? That was me.
Mhm.
I'm doing this, but the important stuff was undone. Look at your priorities and then say what needs to happen. Everything else can fall apart because you know what? When we take care of God's business, he takes care of the rest. And some of this stuff that we're stressing ourselves out about not having balance, it ain't important. No,
It's
it's
not.
not important. It is not key. So when we focus on priority, when we say, what am I going to do? And here's one more thing about time. We have to go back again to definitions and words, and they're meaningful. They have impact. How often do we say, I got to make the time? I don't have enough time. God
Hmm.
gives everybody that wakes up the same 24 hours.
Yes.
We can't make time.
Yes.
Scripture tells us to redeem it.
Come
So,
on.
Lord, what? Okay, so here's what's on my plate. Heavenly Father, make it clear for me what needs to happen, what does not need to happen, what should I be doing. And when we do those things, balance can become more achievable. Self care can become more real. You find those spaces because it allows our yes to be a godly yes, our best
Come
yes.
on, Miss
We
Nettye.
stop saying yes to everything. We realize that no is not a four-letter word and it is a complete sentence, and it's okay to say
It's
it.
a complete.
Complete
We
She's
have
dropping gems
so
tonight,
when
y'all.
we do
Okay.
this is how balance can be real. My sisters, y'all, I went decades. I went decades. I went decades living that cuckoo for crazy Cocoa Puff running. And I honestly wore being frazzled, being busy, doing so much. I wore it like a badge of honor. And that is foolishness. And that is the enemy.
Oh,
And
that's
when you turn it around and you say, what does God want me to do? Look at what Jesus did when he was on earth. Jesus did a lot. Do we ever see where Jesus was like frazzled? And you understand? Jesus would get away. He'd be like, y'all, I'm gone. Jesus would go. Jesus got away. How many times you see in scripture it say he went away to a solitary place and played with his father?
Just
You
yeah,
spoke
saw
on that
times.
Sunday.
Think about it. So
yeah.
why we feel that we got to be ripping and running. You want to know where it comes from? For Black women, it also is rooted in our impression from enslavement.
Ooh, come on,
The
talk that.
fact that we have been conditioned as a people to be able to do and to go and to be strong and to not feel and to not get tired. We don't honor ourselves in that.
That's right.
We if we free, let's be free indeed.
That's
Let's
Yes,
right.
be free indeed. And as you all both said, it starts with our priorities.
yes,
And it starts with sometimes putting that pen to paper. It starts with having someone that can call you accountable, somebody that can call you out. I will forever be thankful for a few sisters at my church that one of them sat me down and said, Nettye, you just doing too much. Whereas from so many people in the church, I was getting, oh, look at you, you're such a fake. She was like, why are you here every time the door open? What about you need to be home sometime?
Right.
mm,
Yes.
Sometimes in our ripping and running and doing, we can actually cause our children to resent church if we're neglecting them
mm.
at home. We're
It's
not
true.
saying we're not saying don't take them to church. Definitely do, but where is the order and the balance? If my life outside of the four walls of the church is a hot mess,
Yeah.
Yes.
but I'm running up in here. Oh, what is it teaching my children through experience? That what value are they getting from that? We got to walk this thing, y'all. And it
Yes.
comes going back to what Sharon had said at the very beginning with
Ooh,
grace, with being willing to just let some of this stuff go
yeah.
and go hard with what really matters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let the other stuff go.
Yeah.
Yes. She, oh my God,
Oh
she
my
said a
God, you
mouthful.
dropped a lot of gems.
Okay.
I'm
It was
telling
just
you.
something. Listen. And one of the things that stood out amongst all of everything, as I say, just everything, was the fact that she said, when you find your purpose, you find balance. And I'm paraphrasing, but when you find purpose, you find balance because knowing your purpose will keep you from being all over the place.
That's right.
Yes, yes, yes. And I had to learn that doing a lot of good things are not necessarily doing a lot of things that are God things. You know what I'm saying? Because just because you're doing good things doesn't mean those are the things that God have called you to
Yes,
do. And
yes,
sometimes that'll take you off balance.
yes,
You know, so I had to learn that the hard way.
yes.
And when you was talking about no, I had to learn how to say
Okay.
no.
Mm-hmm.
I really did. I
Yes.
had to learn because you always want to please people. You always want to be there for people. You know, my husband used to say, Superwoman to the rescue. Here you go again. They bumped they toe, you on your way, you know. They skint they knee, you on your way, you know. And I used to, like whatever, whatever. But I had to stop and say, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Is this necessary what I'm doing?
Yeah.
You know.
And
Yeah.
accountability to that. And I want to comment on that as a PK. Allow me to, okay? Because I'm getting ready to take it there.
Take
Um,
it there.
because growing up, let me tell you something, and being a pastor's kid, you do see, and I did see my siblings, and I saw my mother being pulled on a lot,
Mhm.
a lot. And um, sometimes because she would say yes because of her heart, it would take away from the time she would be able to spend with us. And it wasn't intentional. My mom loves her children, but she was trying to find that balance of
Yeah.
I'm trying to shepherd and be mom. And sometimes as a child, and be honest, like, okay, she just preached. She got a meeting after service. She got to meet with this person, that person, that person. I'm hungry.
I had to learn how to say no. Let's make an appointment. Let's schedule
Yeah.
for another time. You had to, and that was for me. And I had to learn balance.
Yeah, and so
It was a process for me.
and sometimes if we're not careful, I understand now as an adult, but you said something we can make our children resent. It wasn't that I resented having a relationship with God, but it put
The
a
church.
bad
It's
taste
the
in
church.
my
Yeah.
mouth and a burden on my heart as well as a child. You know that listen, mom, this is my mom. You know what I'm saying? And I felt like people just weren't sensitive enough to the fact that she had a family.
Come on.
Be sensitive enough. I know she's spiritual, she's your spiritual mom, but listen, you have to understand all of these things, whether she's your mentor, whatever she is to you, you as the person has to be sensitive enough and not be so selfish
And respectful.
That
and
is so
respectful enough.
awesome.
Respect
Wow, I love
enough
that.
that this lady has a family that she has to
Woo.
take care of. And I don't believe that it was intentional that some people uh
Wow.
um I say take advantage of, and they may not, unbeknownst to them, they probably didn't mean to, but sometimes when you have a heart to serve like that, you can be taken advantage of.
Absolutely.
And
Wow.
it can be innocent. And then there are some people who just will take advantage of you. Just keep it 100. But I had to learn, that I know my mom. I know my mom's heart.
Good.
Wasn't
And
it?
when we got older, we've had discussions about it.
Absolutely.
I'll be honest. I was one of the children that say no, no, no,
My son.
no, 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 no.
Sharon, did you hear Miss Nettye? Did you hear her when she said, I thought I would almost pass out when Miss Nettye said that the lady told her, you need to go home. Now,
Yes.
being in church, that
Yes,
Yes.
ain't nobody supposed to tell you not to come to church or you at church too much. This is why our children are going through and our marriages are not working. And because that there again, we spend all our time in one place because we don't think God can go anywhere else but church.
You know
say
what? That's good. And it's good to have those women of God, men of God around you that are not afraid to call you out and to
Mhm.
Say
just let you know because you need that.
Go
Because
on.
sometimes you're so far left, you got to
Mhm.
bring you back into right focus. I had a dear sister that I love dearly. She said, I'm going to tell you, Christ died for the church. You don't have to.
yes,
I said, well, hello there. You try and do this, that. You know what? He already died for the church,
yes,
Joyce.
yes,
I said, Lord, help me, Jesus.
yes.
And so it took a minute for me to learn balance. But when I learned balance, I started walking in it.
Yeah, because you
The
don't.
say
best
that.
thing that could have ever happened to me.
I'm gonna call it dysfunction. You don't want to enable dysfunction. You
No.
know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The people have to be accountable. When we go to heaven, we have to give an account for ourselves.
Yes.
We have to give an account for ourselves. Go ahead, Miss Nettie.
Something. Oh gosh, I love that. I'm going to remember that. Christ died for the church. Okay, so that was really good.
That's good.
Look, I want to just connect some things that the three of you said, and going back earlier when Dr. Power said we have to stay on top of what our children are hearing and what's going on in this world. Right now, we are living in what they call a postmodern era.
Mhm.
Children nowadays are different.
Yes.
Many of us were raised such that if my father or grandfather said, look at that purple sky, and I'm looking at the sky and I know the sky is blue, I would say, it sure is purple, Big Papa. I mean, I would just be like, yes, sir. Even in my head, like, I would not, we would just, nowadays, you say, okay, the sky is purple. The child is going to pull out their phone. They're going to Google something. They're going to start
Yes.
talking about the refraction of you got to show them something.
You better say that
We
for the new
we were
generation. They not
it's a
gonna
different
listen to what you
it's a different generation. Our parents could tell us something and we would say yes, ma'am, yes, sir. Even if we were having all kinds of contrary things in our head, it didn't come out of our mouth.
Right.
Our children nowadays, they're almost like from the Missouri state. They're like, you got to show me.
Okay.
So when we are walking around saying one thing and showing them something else, that is not going to resonate.
Yes.
We cannot walk around saying all this kind of stuff and just expect them. And here's why. I'm gonna go back. I can't remember. Y'all, I have pages of notes. I always write stuff down. And let me tell you what, I always like to share this. There is in adult behavior, adult learning and behavior change, there's a concept of forgetting. It's called the learning curve, the curve of forgetting.
Yeah.
And the average person forgets 70% of what they hear within 24 hours, even when it's good. And so I don't have a good memory anyway, so I write stuff down. But I should have wrote down who said it. Somebody was saying that how our kids are being fed so many different things, right?
Yes.
So here we are saying one thing, we're showing them something, there's a dissonance that doesn't sit well with them that they don't know how to handle because they're being raised in this postmodern generation where they're being fed so much information. Their brain synapses actually connects differently than ours. I won't go into that
Mm-hmm.
right now. But what happens is they're being fed so many things that are contrary to God's word over
Yes.
and over and over, and the enemy is good at counterfeit evidence.
Ooh,
Yes.
yes, yes.
So what's happening is they're being fed all of this, and we change because of exposure and repetition.
Mm.
So we are giving them a little bit, then we're not present because we're trying to do all the things for all the
Woo!
world. And then they're getting constantly fed fake stuff with fake evidence, and we wonder why we have a hard time. Do you
Ah,
understand what I'm saying?
Right.
So
That's
y'all
good.
are saying so many things that come together, and when we piece it together with not only the culture, right?
yes.
We're to be in this world and not of the world, but also how even our biology is changing because of how much stimulus our children get at a very young age. Their brains even are developing different. Going back to what Dr. Power said, we have to handle them differently. And at the key, the core of it is time, attention, focus,
Yes.
listening to them, talking
Listening.
to them, going back to what you said about not wanting them to be isolated. Because guess what? When they close their ears to us, their ears are wide open to the world.
Come on.
Wide open because the world is constantly feeding in a way that is attractive to this not developed, still growing in the spirituality mind. So I just love all of what y'all are saying. This is so good. This is
And let me
y'all.
say, my son is a conversationalist, okay? And I can be having a conversation with him, and he'll be like, "Are you sure? Are you?" He'll ask me, "Are you sure?" And he'll get to researching, and that tickled me so because my son has always been verbal. He's always, "How you doing? How was your day?" And like a full grown adult, he's been that way for years.
Yes.
Always asking, wanting to have dialogue. And so I know that it's so true. And with the son that I have, I said, okay, he likes information. He likes information. He's also a creative like me.
Mm-hmm.
So I gotta know how to navigate with my son, okay? Because this one right here, yeah, she's a challenge for me. This ain't no just walk in the park. I
Right.
just can't think. No, I'm gonna go back to the drawing board for this one. And every stage is different. As they get older, every
Yeah.
stage is different. Again,
It
he's
is.
now in high school. And so things are changing. The world is different now. So it's so important that we are accessible, that we are present. And just because we're in the same house does not mean I'm present.
That's true.
That's right.
You're so right.
True.
I have to take the time to have these conversations. And if I do have a busy schedule, Dr. Powers, you talked about being creative. Early mornings when I'm dropping you off to school, let's have conversation. Let's talk.
That's
On
right.
the way home,
That's right.
let's talk.
That's right.
Let's carve out some time.
That's right.
And let's do something, or let's go on a walk. Or my
That's
son loves sports, I love sports too, so let's do that, and we can have conversations with that. Or sometimes after school, let's go and grab something to eat, and we'll sit and have time. My son loves spending time. He's a loving child, he really is. And so I think it's so important, know your child and be present.
Be present.
Be active. Be active. Don't be so busy that you're not active with your children. And that's so important. This balance thing is so good. Go ahead, Mom.
So, what would you say for those that said, I want to be there, but right now I'm working 3 jobs just to keep a roof over my head?
Mm-hmm.
And it's difficult, and I don't have a community. I hear y'all talking
So
about you have a community, you have family to help, but I don't have anybody. It's just me and my child. I'm not able to do those things. What would you say to that individual?
Go ahead, Dr. Powers.
So for me, because I've been in that place, going through divorce, especially in the church, and having to pick up jobs and pay attention to my sons. You're going to have to be very, very strategic. And in that, even if you don't have a community, I had to create me one.
Yes.
Sometimes I had to, we don't like to be honest and vulnerable. One of the greatest gifts I learned how to be is vulnerable.
Yes.
I became vulnerable with their teachers. I let them know what was going on with me. I became vulnerable with people. I became vulnerable with their doctors. I became vulnerable with people that gave me what I needed in my community. And I found that their doctors would text me and ask how am I doing, how they're doing, how their after school program. I became so I built relationships with people that helped my children, that had to keep my children while I was at work. And what I found out was I didn't just build, and I don't want anybody to think I'm harping on church, but that's just sometimes that's the only thing we tend to run to. I built a community outside of church because these were the people I needed. And so when you use certain strategies and you become creative, build a community with the people, get to know them. And
Yes.
when you do that, before you know it, you got 5 people on your team saying, let me help you, let me do this. And I promise you it works, because I had to learn. I had to stop traveling, I had to go to work, I had to raise my kids. And for me, I've been preaching since I was 16, but right now preaching wasn't as important as making sure my child could eat.
Yes.
At that moment, running to do the next revival didn't have anything to do with my child needs shoes, my child need clothes. They're not going to understand me going to the revival and they got a game. I got to show up for the game. So I had to build a community. I had to learn how to switch shifts with people, build community on my job so I can get off of work and show up to some of my kids' stuff.
Yes.
You just gotta learn how to have the right conversations, how
Yes.
to build, and then you can't be friends with folk that don't have what you need.
Wow. Wow.
That's
Sometimes
so good.
friends with the person down the street and she got a child and they partying. No, learn to build relationships with the people with what you need, because if we both going through the same thing, how am I going to help you? All we can do is talk about what's going on. That's like the phone call when we call each other and say, my back hurt, mine do too. Well, how are we going to help each other? No, if my back hurt and you've already went through your back hurting, then you can tell me how to get out of my back hurting. So we need a community. Build your community in a way that I get what I need. I don't need another me. I need somebody that can empower me, that can
Yes.
strengthen me. And then we got to learn to listen, and I'm gonna say this and then I'm done. I was teaching my son how to drive, but what I noticed in me teaching him how to drive, he was watching what I did versus hearing what I did. And so many times we are trying to build something, but we're not good examples of what we're building, because we're saying one thing and then we're doing another. And so, I was teaching him the 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock, but the way I drive every day, I drive with one hand, lean back, or just sometimes I got a habit of doing it. And so I started knowing they were doing what I do, but not what I said. And so I found myself having to go all the way back and retrain myself that if I want them to be safe drivers, I was going to have to get out of my comfortable habits and show them what I should be doing in the first place. And
Come
so
on.
that's what we have to do as parents, upcoming parents, single. It's going to be challenges, but baby, make your challenge work for you.
Yes.
Find a community, get with people, because I'm telling you, there are some great people that want to help. You just can't find it in friends. You can't be trying to date everybody. You just gotta get yourself to a place where you build your community, then you build you.
Yes. I
Absolutely.
love that. I love that. That was so good. That's so good. Oh, these comments are flying. I love it, y'all. Listen, because we're going to be moving this live along. We could be here all night, and I believe there needs to be a part two of somewhere down the line. I said to my mama. I mean, because this is so good. Here's what I
Y'all
want you
got me
guys to do.
rocking. Like I'm sitting here rocking. Look, this
Listen,
is
here's
good.
what I need you to do. If you have questions, because I want them to be able to answer some of your questions, go ahead and start writing them in the comment section. I am going to highlight them, and then we're going to come back and have them answer a few of your questions. But we spoke a lot about balance. You just highlighted single mothers, and I want to do something. I want to speak to the single mothers fairly quickly. I want you to be encouraged. I want you to know that you are seen and you are supported. Dr. Latonya Powers said, make your situation work for you. Keep pushing, keep your head up. You've got this. You have a community, or build your community, okay?
Yes.
And here's another thing that I want to say, because I've seen it said, I've seen it posted on Facebook. Single moms, you don't have to be the father too.
No.
You are not called to be the father. Mother's Day is for you. Father's Day is for the father. And if the father is inactive, here's what you need to do. You need to pray and ask God to give you wisdom and to send people. Here's a
Yes.
community to be a father figure, to be a mentor to your child or to your children. There are things that God gave you that a father just cannot provide. And there are things, you know what I'm saying?
That God gave the father.
Yes. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? There are things that God gave the father that you cannot provide. But God gives us a community of people that allows us, that's a supplement. I want to use that word, that can supplement.
Yes.
That's why we have spiritual mothers. That's why we have mentors. That's why we have
spiritual
guardians. That's why we have spirit. We have these
Yes.
things because that spiritual father, that mentor can be that supplement for your child. I'm so grateful. And I will say this, I have a community, and although I am divorced, I am single with a child, I am grateful that my son's father is still present. My son is able to spend time with his father. I'm also grateful though, because I have my child majority of the time during the week. I say, you know what? I'm going to make sure that he has a great relationship with his uncles. He has a mentor. He has a relationship with his grandfathers. And I wasn't the mom that said, you know what, I'm going to take him away from his dad or castigate his father. I'm not going to talk ill about your father. I have no reason to talk ill about your father. My son loves his father and has a great relationship. But I said on this end, I'm going to make sure that when you're in this house, that even on this side, that you have the representation, that you have the support, that you have the ears, that you with me. You can't talk to call your uncles, call your mentor, talk to your grandfather. And I'm so grateful for that community. I'm so grateful that they have been there, even on this side of the family, to be able to help me with my son. And I do understand that everybody is, what we would say, not fortunate to have that community, but there is a solution. There is a solution. Build that community. There are resources that are available that I am also going to post as well, that are available for you to get the help that you need, the financial aid that you need. So be
the assistance that they need. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Counseling.
Absolutely. You know, and even as we were saying, in all your ways, acknowledge him and he'll direct your path. God will give you the connections that you need, connect you with the people that you need to be connected with, so, he knows how to do it. We may not have that community that we want within our biological family, but sometimes people that are not in your biological family are more closer to you and will be there for you more so even in people in your biological family.
Yeah. So build that community. And like I said, I'm going to post those resources that can be available to single mothers specifically. These questions, the questions have rolled in. I've highlighted them. Let's go for it. This question says, what advice do you have for a mom who has an estranged relationship with a son in another state to rebuild that relationship? What advice do you have for a mom? I'm actually going to show it on the screen so you guys can see it. Do you have for a mom who has an estranged relationship with a son in another state to rebuild that relationship?
Miss Nettye.
Okay, I have a question. How old is the child? I mean, how old is the son? Is it an adult son or a child son? I
Yes,
think that makes a tremendous difference.
It does.
no problem. If you can come in and comment, that would be great. That would be great. And while we're waiting, they said adult. They said an adult.
Okay. So, and I think I saw another question, Sharon, and I don't know if you highlighted it as well, and it was talking about how to parent a young adult child, a young adult
Yep, I
child.
have that highlighted.
So here's the thing. You can't parent an adult. When we talked about seasons, there are different seasons, right? And the season that we have to pour and to have that influence is when they are children, and you are the parent. Once you are the parent and they are an adult, you're still the parent, but there's a different relationship. The
Mm-hmm.
relationship is very different. And so you have to first kind of step out of that, um, the mindset of I am parenting you, because now they're grown too. And it's just not going to be received in the same way. We also have to be willing to acknowledge where there may be barriers and there may be resistance because they didn't get it when they were children. Does that make sense? It's
Yeah.
almost like if they're on meat and we're trying to give them milk because we didn't give them the milk when they don't want the milk now. They want the meat. So it's not saying that you still can't provide and you still can't connect, but it has to come from a place of realizing that you can't parent them. But as the parent, though, we still should carry the responsibility. I can't tell you how many times I've heard instances where there's estrangement between a parent and a child, and both of them are adults, and the parent is saying, "Well, I'm waiting on the child," and the child needs, no, that's the parent's responsibility to go after them. Does that make sense? The parent should make more of the effort because that child didn't get what they needed at the same time. But we can't treat a grown person like a child just because they came from us, because those types of methods typically would not be received. So I think that what then becomes building relationship, a lot of it is going to have to come from listening. A lot of it is going to have to come from being willing to hear what their needs are from them. Even if they may not be true needs, they may be perceived needs. And perceived needs for people that are hurting, for people that feel that they're lacked, for people that feel that they've been hurt, their perception is their reality. So there should be some of that, being willing to hear some things that may be harmful for you,
Yeah.
maybe from making some sacrifices, maybe not meeting them halfway, going all the way to try to meet where they are. Because even though you can't parent them, you're still older. Prayerfully, you have more wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
Prayerfully, you can still have that guidance and mentor them, but there needs to be relationship. You can't mentor an adult if there's no relationship.
Yeah.
You can parent a child. You know what I'm saying? Like, so when we're old, when they're kids, we can kind of force some stuff on them. But once there's an adult, there's not going to be any forcing. So that relationship needs to be there to open up the ears and to open up the connections. Does
Yeah.
that does
That's
that kind of
good.
does that help?
Yes. I see that you pretty much answered both of those questions together, which is really good. I have a question that I wrote down. And I wanted to know, for those who don't have the best relationship with their mother at this present moment, their mother is still alive. They have a desire, they have a longing. How or what advice would you give them in regards to possibly provoking some restoration or reconciliation? And then it's two part, for a a person who never knew their mother. You know, we have children that go through the system of adoption, and they're dealing with that burden because they don't know if their parent is alive or dead. What advice would you give? So it's two parts. So um, anybody want to give advice as far as to that one who doesn't have the best relationship with their mother at the moment, whether the mother doesn't want the relationship with them or it's just there's tension. What should they do? How should they handle that?
So I'll take a stab at it. When anytime people are in a relationship, um, everybody's wanting something, and when relationships go estranged, there's always a root cause, and for whatever the root cause is, people have to get to a place of not wanting to be right, but just wanting to be healed. And
Yes.
so the first
Good.
thing I would suggest is before you try to build that relationship, maybe seek some counseling,
Yes.
and then get some strategies and in place. And Miss Nettye talked about, goals and things that you can do, and then do that, and then approach it not from what you did wrong to me or what you did to me or what's wrong with us, but approach it just like you would with a person that you're trying to build a friendship with.
Yeah.
This is something I teach my clients, that even whether you are mother and son, mother and daughter, sisters, and your relationships are broken, approach it from getting to know one another all over again and build a relationship, because just because you had some type of relationship don't mean it was a good relationship, and
Yeah.
some patterns just need to be broken, because there's a lot of generational curses going on, there's a lot of generational traumas, there's a lot of generational things that we learned and it wasn't necessarily good. So the best thing to do is unlearn what you've learned and then get to a place where you can relearn so you can heal. The most important thing is to seek counseling so you can heal and go from there.
I love that.
Absolutely. And there has to be some acknowledgement, because
Absolutely.
sometimes we don't want to acknowledge. We don't want to humble ourselves. We don't want to apologize. We don't want to admit that we are flawed, even as parents.
Yeah.
Sometimes I believe that was Miss Nettye was talking about the responsibility is on the parent, even
Mhm,
if the child is grown. You
mhm.
know, more of the responsibility is on the parent to be able to open up and to begin to talk and bring conversation so that healing can happen.
Yeah. And which feeds into that question about that child who may feel abandoned
Yeah.
Right.
because they never had the opportunity. They feel like they didn't get that chance and they're hurting because they never got that opportunity. Counseling is available.
Yes.
Spiritual guidance, a community
Mhm.
is available to you. So don't be afraid. We don't talk about counseling enough, but it's so
Right.
important, because just talking and opening up and being able to speak on those things can foster healing, can provoke healing in itself. So it's
Mhm.
just so
Yeah.
important,
Yeah.
that we do that. So important. I'm going to read just a few comments. Um, Someone said, I was a single parent of two sons, no help from family or friends, and it was hard. I realized that everything I did had to include myself and my sons. So I figured it out, made it work, and it was okay. How great is our God? He
Yes.
blessed me with a church family that became my family. It was then that I was able to do more. This comment says, my balance came from realizing that I was too busy doing too much of what was not my business. I
Good.
know that's right. I know that's right. That is so right, guys. And I think it's so important, um, that we take in what we've heard tonight. There were a lot of seeds that were thrown out, and I hope they fell on good ground, because these were some gems, some great seeds. And we talked about counseling, we talked about assistance, and I wanted to make sure that I put this up on the screen for you. If you know someone who needs some type of assistance, or if you need some type of assistance, please, National Parent Helpline, you can call this number 1-855-427-2736. There's singlemotherguide.com. There's growingfamilybenefits.com where you can get the assistance. There's singlemothersgrants.org where you can get grants. So please make sure that you use these resources that are available to you. They are available to you. Yes, I believe that she answered that question. It was, what? How do you suggest being a parent to a young adult without being overbearing? Yes, she answered that question. Yes, she did.
Can I just commend what you just did, Sharon Ann, by putting up those resources? Very
Yes.
often I go to faith-based discussions and we talk about challenges and we talk about things and we don't take it to the actual practical, this is where you can get help. And God so often works through people, right? and
Yes.
and so I just want to commend you for giving somebody something very practical. This is the help. There are a couple of sayings that come from the truth that our God will supply all of our needs, right? We know that that's true. And so then it comes to, well, if that is true, then there's some supplying happening. Where is it? And we see what we look for. So that means that we have to look for it and we have to stand on the fact that God has supplied. Resources are there. The key is to see them. And
Yes.
so and so I just thank you for that. So often we suffer unnecessarily
Yes.
Yes.
when God has
That is
provided.
so
He is
true.
providing, and we sit there and say, I don't have, and I don't have, and I don't have, and things are there. And
Yes.
there's this gap between what God has provided and what we need. So thank you so much. I love that. I love that. Thank you for doing that.
Yes.
That's so good that you said that, because back in the day, and I'm sure Dr. Powers can relate to what I'm about to say, we were taught, Jesus is enough, and
That's
he
right.
is enough,
Yeah.
but we have to understand that he gives these giftings,
Yeah.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
all of them are not um the giftings that are in the fivefold ministry in Ephesians 4 and in
Yeah.
First Corinthians, but he give the gift of counseling. And they would tell us that you're not spiritual. You don't have a close relationship with God if you're trying to get counseling, secular counseling, but you need that.
Yeah.
People have issues that they deal with
Yes.
that
Right.
sometimes your pastor is not
Equip.
able to help you with.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? Some situations you need professional counseling.
Yeah. It is so true.
And it's okay.
It's
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 okay.
very
No.
okay.
It's
It
called
is so
balance.
okay. Not only is it called balance, but we will go to the grocery store and put food in our body. We will go to the store and put clothes in our bag. We will go to the doctor and we'll get medicines and take them, but we won't go anywhere and fix our head, fix our
say
mind.
that.
It's the same concept. Go get your mind right. It is okay.
It is
It
okay.
it makes sense. It's using wisdom. I don't want my pastor doing my colonoscopy. Right? I mean, does that make, like, look, why we try to get everything? Come on now. I mean, there are God has and God, and here's the thing, going back to our purpose can exist. Our purpose should be tied to our profession. So that counselor that I'm so glad that you all are lifting, they're living their purpose. You can find a Christian counselor and they're living their purpose by helping us to get this mind right.
That's right.
Yes.
And so it's yeah. That's
Yes, yes. You need a doctor for your health, a doctor for your mind. Come on here, a
right.
doctor for your spirit.
Mhm.
Because we are a trichotomy people,
That's
Yeah.
right.
That's
spirit,
it.
soul, and
Yes.
body.
That's right.
Yes.
Yes.
Come on with it. Joyce
Hmm.
Come on, that is so good. Someone says our purpose should be tied to our profession. Listen, I just think it's just so amazing what has been said on tonight. Listen, if you have been blessed, don't go anywhere. If you've been blessed, I want you to put those hearts. I want to see them flying across the screen. If you're like, I really enjoyed this, or I know that there are others that can benefit from this, I want you to watch this video about what we represent and what our purpose is. Please stay locked. Greetings, I'm Sharon, the founder of SNS Coed, and I'm here to share a little bit about what we represent. Single and Satisfied Coed is a faith-based organization that's been designed to help educate, inspire, and empower us as men and women to become the best version of ourselves before entering into marriage. Now, this is not about us being satisfied without, but more so about learning how to be satisfied within. We believe that we can help increase the percentage of healthy relationships, friendships, and marriages by focusing on laying the proper foundation. And that foundation starts with educating our singles, providing them with the proper resources, tools, and information necessary to help them thrive, not just survive as single individuals. We host numerous events that are focused on, but not limited to, mental health, wellness, developing inter and intrapersonal skills, financial stability, and more. And sometimes we get together just to network and have a great time. Our discussions, which are held online and in person, focus on tackling topics and answering questions that are relevant and vital to sustaining lifelong healthy relationships. They teach us how to be accountable, responsible, content, and confident with who God created us to be. It is our desire to help you gain insight into your purpose and help set you on the right path. Now, whether marriage is the ultimate goal or you're content with being single, we're here to help you on your journey. So cheers to being single and satisfied. We hope you enjoyed today's virtual discussion. SNS Coed is appreciative of your support and your financial donations. We want to thank our viewers, sponsors, partners, and those of you who've given donations to help support the vision of SNS Coed. We couldn't do this without you. Our in-person and online events are made possible because of your generous contributions. Everything we do has you in mind. We desire to provide you with the tools and resources you need to thrive, along with providing a life-changing experience. In light of that, we're asking that you please consider joining this movement and partnering with us by donating to this cause. Whether it's a one-time donation or monthly pledge, we greatly appreciate it. Your contributions will help us cover expenses and help us broaden our reach so we can impact our community and the world. All monetary donations can be sent via these avenues: Cash App, Zelle, or PayPal. This information is provided to you on the screen. If you're looking to partner or be a sponsor, please send an email to snsexec@gmail.com. That's snsexec@gmail.com. We'd love to send you our sponsorship packet along with additional information on how you can partner with SNS Coed. Again, thank you all for your contributions. SNS Coed Live is on Facebook and YouTube, and we want to stay connected with you. Join our community to stay posted on the latest events and sessions. Don't forget to share and invite someone as well. Type in SNS Coed Live, then follow, like, and subscribe.